and I'm starting to understand the cutesy little joke behind the name, right? It's not about this uh, Middle Eastern myth or whatever. It's about a lad insane. I see what you've done
Mhm.
there, Mr. Bowie. Hey, everybody out there. Welcome back to another episode of the Audiophiles. It's Andy and it's John, and we are here to discuss some music. John is going to offer up something for me to go off and listen to, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to discuss it in detail. But in order to do that, I need to know what we are diving into today, John. So, what'll it be?
No, the time has come. We've talked about this off camera. Um, as you know, bit of a nutcase when it comes to a certain David Bowie. And I was thinking about to someone like myself, I know all his work, but to the casual admirer, there may be a few gems which you may not be aware of because he's done so much.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yes.
particularly in the 70s as well, there's, Starman and Ziggy and all that sort of stuff and Ashes to Ashes, but there's lots in between, which is stellar. Um, so I've taken a punt on a song, and I'll tell you why later, this particular one. Um, and it'll be familiar to you in terms of perhaps its name or definitely its image. And that song is Aladdin Sane.
I've heard of, is that also the album name?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that there.
Funny enough, I knew it as the album. I didn't even because I don't. This is, as you describe me, a casual admirer of Bowie. I know some of his stuff,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
what I do know and am familiar with, I really do like. But I've never sat down and just went, I'm going to listen to every Bowie album, which is probably something I should do. And you can help me along the way, fill in some of these gaps. This is definitely one of them. I only knew it at that name as an album name. I didn't know that there was like a title track on that
Yeah.
album that bore the same name. So yeah, this will definitely be a situation that where I'm listening to something I've never heard before. So
Yeah, so the title of the album is Aladdin Sane. The title of this track has changed names due to publishing errors a few times, but the proper title is Aladdin Sane brackets 1913-1938-1970 question mark in brackets.
okay.
A catchy
Um
little title.
yeah, it rolls right off the tongue. So yeah, maybe when I come back from listening to it, you can explain the parenthetical portion of that
Yeah.
that title. Yeah, cool. All right. Well, I'm always jonesing to check out some of one of the most eccentric people in all of music. So yeah, let me go check out Aladdin Sane, and I will let you know what I think, man. It's kind of ominous doom chords on the piano there to start things off. That's interesting. And then there's this bass noodling that's happening back there as well. That sounds so cool. I expect nothing less from from Mr. Bowie. That's nice.
Swinging an old bouquet, dead roses, sake and strange divine. You'll make it. Passion with bright young things takes him away to war. Don't fake it, sagging the sandal strings. Battle cries and champagne, just in time for sunrise. We'll love Aladdin Sane. Motor sensational, Paris or maybe hell.
This piano is so interesting. Like it started off with that boom, kind of, I think I said doom chord or whatever. Now it's this light cascading, bright, kind of tinkly sound to it. It's quite an interesting evolution, uh, and kind of turned my expectations on its head. Um, yeah, this sounds very cool, very kind of like jazz-y adjacent. But yeah, I can already tell this is probably going to be one worthy of multiple listens. Uh, but I'm liking what I'm hearing so far and finding it very interesting.
Watches of sad remains.
Oh, that
Waits
bass.
for Aladdin Sane. You'll make it. We'll love Aladdin Sane. William Sweet Fountain, just in case of sunrise. We'll love Aladdin Sane. We'll love Aladdin Sane. We'll love Aladdin Sane.
Saxophone? Just pounding. Wow. Okay, so this is, I didn't want to stop like right in the middle of that, and who knows, there could be more to come, but it sounded like I had a little break there for a second. Oh wow, this is like the avant-garde jazz type piano. I mean, it's just all over the map. But it's somehow, God, it's really careening close to the edge of the precipice, but it's not falling off. Also, speaking of that, kudos to the rhythm section for keeping their shit together while all that was happening. Very simple, doo-doo, doo-doo, like bass line and that beat. But god damn, with all that piano flying around, it would be so easy to you know lose your concentration with all that happening around you. Yeah, this is really interesting, and I'm now 100% sure it's going to warrant further listens. It's so oddball, and I'm so sure, knowing the man, that it's very much intentional that it sound this way. Um, but yeah, it's very, I don't. It's just off the wall and unexpected, and I can imagine that this this was talked about quite a lot when this album was released. Yeah, this is really cool in the weirdest way, but the best kind of weird.
Love Aladdin Sane.
Still some life in that piano. It will not go quietly into the night. Doom chord. The cheekiest little flourish there at the end. Oh, that was fun. Really interesting. I could totally see people being like, "This is awful. This is crazy. It's too much." And it touched on the borders of that for me. But I think that's part of the deal, right? Like poking and prodding at your comfort zone a little bit. I don't know. Maybe I'm just projecting my own feelings on this, and I'm wrong. But I feel like a big part of what avant-garde music is meant to do is test those boundaries. And this song definitely did this. Um, I really love that the way the piano ended and went out. It was the way it wrapped up was almost like an acknowledgement of all of those things that I just said that it was trying to do. And it kind of had a little laugh at the end at the listener. Yeah, really, really cool stuff. I think John and I have sometimes compared some thunderous piano bits to sounding like the instrument itself is falling down a flight of stairs. This sounded like it was bouncing all over the room, just being hurled around sonically. Uh, and yeah, this isn't one of those. This piano isn't like there's no melody there that's going to get stuck in your head like an earworm or anything like that. Um, but it is wholly unique. And like most things, Bowie undeniably interesting. Um, and I think I understand the title now because the piano on this sounded like it was being played by an insane lad, thus the name Aladdin Sane. I think is what we're going for here. Haha. I think I get the joke. Uh, but yeah, I'm sure John can provide gobs of context uh, for me that I don't currently have, and the only way to get that is to go back and join him. And I am very much interested, knowing how much he loves Bowie and that he picked this song knowing that it was one that I had not heard from Bowie. I'm very much interested to hear what he has to say. So let's get back to him.
Schleswig-Holstein is back. So you've had a listen to Aladdin Sane by Mr. Bowie. What are your thoughts?
I've got plenty of them. First question: is this album a concept album?
Kind of.
Kind of. Yeah, something that he's not. That's not exactly a foreign concept to Mr. Bowie. And this song, just listening to it on an island, it just this tune screams part of a bigger picture, or like I am lacking contextual
Sure.
information that would probably help me piece pieces together and fill in gaps for me, because this was odd in all the right Bowie ways.
Yeah, of course.
Definitely like, man, I could use some contextual information to explain some of this stuff. Um, but yeah, right out of the gate, we're met with this like almost doom, what I've affectionately called the doom chord on the piano, you
Yeah.
know. And okay, that captures my attention. And then it's balanced by this like higher key noodling and some really nice electric guitar and specifically bass work. Especially as the song progresses, this bass work in the first half is so much more complex and mature than the very rudimentary rhythmic bass you get as all the other musical shit kind of hits the fan later in the track. So I'm loving that. It's almost like a little melodic lead motif on the bass that's being played behind these very different it's like the scales are being going like this on the piano, like we're getting doom chords, we're getting high, bright, twinkly bits here and there, and it's just so all over the map and very interesting. So yeah, a lot happening in the beginning with the soundscape. I really love that bass line that's weaving its way in and out. Um, and we're just shortly into the verse, and I catch this bit where Bowie does this sort of stuttered kind of thing that then repeats itself a little later on. But I just love the way his voice and the music are like kind of syncopated in that moment. It just made me smile and chuckle when I heard that. I was kind of like instantly charmed by that bit. And soon, again, as I alluded to a moment ago, we're treated to more of those uhs. And the song shifts into this more driving portion where Bowie ponders who will love Aladdin Sane. Um, and I'm starting to understand the cutesy little joke behind the name, right? It's not about this uh, Middle Eastern myth or whatever. It's about a lad insane. I see what you've done there, Mr. Bowie. And then we get treated to another verse, this time a shorter iteration of it, if I'm not mistaken. And or at least it feels shorter to me than the opening one did. And another chorus. And as Bowie repeats the refrain, the keys again tinkle along. And then through the glare of those really brightly played notes on the keys, emerge this saxophone sound, who is then challenged by this wildly avant-garde sort of jazz piano that flies to and fro and up and down and all over the keys, much like an insane lad. And so again, I'm kind of laughing because the name, I have the epiphany of what the name is meant to be, and then I hear this motif on the piano, and I'm thinking this sort of is played by an insane man. It sounds like anyway. And yeah, it's a challenging listen probably for a lot of people, especially the first time you hear this piano solo, if you will. But it's challenging and weird in all the right ways. And it definitely warrants more listens for it to kind of grow on you. But I enjoyed it nonetheless and found it wholly intriguing that this was like a musical decision that he made for this song. I don't know if he's the one playing it, but I'm sure that he had the final say on what this was supposed to sound like, right? So it's a creative decision made by the man himself, and one that is very, very interesting and intriguing to me. And around the 257 mark, the pianist is really hammering the shit out of those keys in the midst of this solo, like da da da. And they go, and then it goes, flying all over back again to more of this high stuff, and the sax howls from the distance through the torrent of key work as Bowie begins to belt out the chorus once again. And around the 4:30 mark, the storm that was the piano solo finally passes, leaving in its wake some high keynotes, the shuffling drum line, that boppy rudimentary bass line that I mentioned earlier, and a bit of that saxophone, and finally a couple more of those faint but low doom chord strikes. And then at the end, this is I think I gave a very audible ha, but that the cheekiest of little piano flourishes at the end, which is just hilarious. It's almost vaudevillian comical.
It is exactly.
Nature. So that made me laugh like out loud. And yeah, this is really an interesting song worthy of multiple listens. It drew a smile and some chuckles, and made me both scratch and shake my head at times, but again, in sort of the best way possible. It's like when you recognize you're being challenged, and I appreciated that. Sometimes I love so many songs that don't really do that. You know what I mean? That don't throw this weird oddball shit in the middle of the song, like, here, let me throw this fish in your lap. See how you feel about it. But that doesn't mean that I can't enjoy this, or that this doesn't have that. No, this had plenty of reasons to be like intriguing and enjoyable, just for very different reasons. There's very little room in any of this music for an earworm to be born. This isn't something I'm going to be whistling later as I run errands or do a chore. but it is still attractive in its own way. And as far as what it's about, I have no clue. And again, I think that's underscored by this supposition on my part that this part of maybe a larger story, or there's context that I'm missing for this song. Um, but either way, I think it's a really interesting example of some wildly avant-garde jazz piano tucked in the middle of this very interesting song that Bowie's crafted here. So you're gonna have to kind of hold my hand and help me out on understanding what the bigger picture is, or how this fits into the album as a whole, or what the album as a whole was about. So please take the baton, John. I am curious.
Yeah, the reason I chose this song, I was listening to it the other day, actually, not the other week, probably the other month as well, and it struck me that this, for me as a Bowie fan, is such a famous song, but I don't think it's that famous. People have probably heard the name, but not heard the song as much for like I said, the sort of general casual admirers of Bowie, and it is a really interesting and quite important song in terms of his career. Um, I would say this is the first experimental Bowie song, and he went off to do all sorts of shit.
Yeah.
But this was the start of it. So there's so much to his career, and I won't go into everything. I'll just give you some broad strokes, and then we'll go into this album and this track. So David Robert Jones, born in Brixton, London, 1947. So he released 26 studio albums, 9 live albums, 2 soundtrack albums, 128 singles, and many, many compilations. He sold over 100 million records worldwide during his lifetime, and he's the 9th best-selling singles artist in the UK. He died from liver cancer 2 days after his 69th birthday, which coincidentally was the date of the release of his final album, Black Star, in 2016. And you know my theory, the world turned to shit as soon as he died. So in the 2 years following his death, 5 million Bowie records were sold in the UK in just the 2 years after he died. And as of 2022, Bowie was the biggest selling vinyl artist of the 21st century, which is quite incredible.
Yeah,
then, you think about really re-releases, etc. So this is the title track of his 6th studio album. Following on from that breakthrough, the rise and fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars in 1972. So Bowie described this album as Ziggy Goes to America. It contains songs that he wrote while he was traveling to and across the US during the Ziggy tour and parts of it before he went to Japan. And it was recorded in between legs in both London and New York. And so it continued that sort of glam rock feel from Ziggy, but with this American influence, which he sort of got into it, which gave it a heavier, a more muscular tone to most of the songs. And this song is a real outlier compared to the rest of the album.
Okay, that makes sense.
This was also a really busy time for Bowie, because while he was doing this, I mean, this was his first taste of fame. So he's writing this from the point of being a successful artist, which he'd never been before. He'd done some great stuff, but not actually had that recognition. He also, at the same time, was co-producing on with Mick Ronson Lou Reed's debut album Transformer, and remixing the Stooges' Raw Power album with Iggy Pop as well. So he's doing all this stuff. This album also was the final outing of the full Spiders from Mars as a band, their lineup. And he also included within the personnel the pianist Mike Garson. So just about the cover, it was shot by Brian Duffy, and it remains one of Bowie's most iconic images. And people know it even if they don't know the album or the song. Now, in an effort to ensure that RCA, his label at the time, to make sure they promoted the album extensively, Bowie's manager, Tony DeFries, was determined to make the cover as costly as possible. So he insisted on an unprecedented 7-color printing system rather than the usual 4. And at the time, this image was the most expensive cover art ever made. Really weirdly though, the photo shoot for this was the only time that Bowie ever wore that design on his face,
Yeah, the lightning
even though
bolt.
it's so iconic. And the photographer Duffy believed that Bowie's inspiration for the Flash design came from a ring once worn by Elvis Presley. And it featured the letters TCB, which is an acronym for taking care of business.
Yeah.
Oh, and a lightning flash through it. Um, the album cover was called The Mona Lisa of album covers by The Guardian, and it was one of the 50 greatest album covers of all time by Billboard magazine in 2022.
You alluded to it being the most costly album cover. Do you have a like monetary number that goes?
No, they didn't mention
Okay,
that, but they did all sorts of they did weird shit in terms of airbrushing to get his sort of silvery body.
yeah.
The photographer Duffy actually painted this teardrop on his collarbone. They did all sorts of stuff and the way they lit it and everything else. It just and the way they printed it in particular just made at the time. I'm sure there's shitloads more
Oh yeah,
expensive, but
yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
1973, it was and that made RCA think shit. Oh, we've got to push this now. The mural in Brixton that sprung up after Bowie's death that someone painted that I visited. And I'll tell you what, I will drop in a picture of that here. That mural depicts Bowie as Aladdin Sane, and and people visit it and they'll put perspex up to protect it. But yeah. So Aladdin Sane in 1913, 1938, 1970 was described by David Buckley, who is a Bowie biographer, as the album's pivotal song, and it saw Bowie exploring more experimental genres. So the rest of the album is pretty much got this sort of glam stroke rock, meat and potatoes. Really well done. Don't get me wrong, it's a great album, but this is something different, and it's the start of his experimenting. And what they call a more European sound.
Mhm.
So it features this piano solo by Garson, which was improvised and recorded in one take. Buckley also considers the piano solo as a landmark recording. So the title of it is a pun on Aladdin Sane, as you said, and it was inspired by Bowie's half-brother Terry, who had been diagnosed as schizophrenic. An early variation was Love Aladdin Vain, which Bowie dropped partly because it's terrible and partly because of its drug connotations with the vein. And the dates that are in parenthesis are refer to the years preceding World War One, World War Two, with the third unknown date, 1970, reflecting Bowie's belief in an impending World War Three. Very 70s. The actual song itself was inspired by Evelyn Waugh's 1933 novel Vile Bodies, which Bowie read on one of the ships going back to the UK from America, which I'd imagine back then probably would have taken like a week. But yeah, so in the story, he saw this sort of frivolous, decadent, and silly behavior on the eve of imminent catastrophe as a reflection of. So it's all about these young, bright things that sort of piss around just right after World War One, and they're kind of going off and being frivolous and enjoying themselves. When you've got this heavy weight of the dead and sacrifice and everything, and it's kind of a satire on that sort of sort of part of society. And he saw that as a reflection of contemporary society, particularly in America as he was touring. There people are playing, and and you got to threat a nuclear war and all this sort of stuff. So when Bowie played the song acoustically at a benefit gig in 1996, he reflected that the song was, quotes, about young people just between the two wars wanting to go and screw girls and kill foreigners. So personnel on the song: David Bowie, lead vocals, obviously, 12-string acoustic guitar, Mick Ronson, lead and rhythm guitar, Trevor Boulder, bass, Mick Woodmansey, drums, Ken Fordham, tenor sax, and Mike Garson, piano. So Mike Garson, he has said in his quotes that he has done so much work over the years, but not a week goes by where someone comes up to him and talk to him about this solo. He's done so many albums and all sorts of stuff. But he remembers Bowie's guidance in making the solo come out the way it did. So in quotes, I told Bowie about the avant-garde thing when I was recording, because he just joined Bowie's sort of entourage at this point.
Okay.
When I was recording the Aladdin Sane track for Bowie, it was just two chords, an A and a G chord, and the band were playing very simple English rock and roll. And Bowie said, play a solo on this. I had just met him, so I played a blues solo. But then he said, no, that's not what I want. So then I played the Latin solo. Again, Bowie said, no, that's not what I want. He then continued, you told me you play that avant-garde music, play that stuff. And I said, are you sure? Because you might not be working anymore. But I did the solo that everyone knows today in one take. And I always tell people that Bowie is the best producer I ever met because he lets me do my thing. So I think that's really cool that just do some weird shit, But he gave him the freedom to just do it. There was no, oh, I don't know what's going to go on there. So yeah.
How much production credit does he have under his belt? I mean, you alluded to it earlier with Lou Reed and who was the other artist? Was it
I mean, it's remixing those Stooges, Iggy Pop
the
stuff.
Stooges,
So
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
he's
So
worked with a few,
yeah,
It's fairly early in his career, so I don't know how much production experience he actually had, but he's
outside of
absolutely
maybe his
obsessed.
own stuff, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
but
And
he
but
was
people
obsessed
probably
with
heard that and were like, "I want that sound that he's
yeah, yeah.
featuring." Yeah.
That's what I think the genius was that he brought Mick Ronson with him to do Lou Reed's Transformer because he was obsessed with Velvet Underground. He's a
Mhm.
really early adopter in '67 or whatever, and he went to New York to try and meet them. So they were big friends with Reed, even though they're sort of like bitchy to each other. And Queen Bitch is a Bowie song about Lou Reed, which I think is really funny. But the two of them together worked out the sound that was needed for
Yeah.
Reed, and it came out brilliant. Anyway, right. Just get into the lyrics of the song, which are quite sort of charming in this way. Watching him dash away, swinging an old bouquet of dead roses, sacred, strange, divine, you'll make it. Passionate, bright young things, takes him away to war. Don't fake it. Saddening glissando strings, you'll make it. And then the chorus, who will love Aladdin Sane? Battle cries and champagne, just in time for sunrise. Who will love Aladdin Sane? Motor sensational, Paris or maybe hell. I'm waiting. Clutches of sad remains, waits for Aladdin Sane. You'll make it. Who will love Aladdin Sane? Millions weep a fountain, just in case of sunrise. Who will love Aladdin Sane? Who will love Aladdin Sane? Who will love Aladdin Sane? It's that break. Who will love Aladdin Sane? Millions weep a fountain, just in case of sunrise. Who will love Aladdin Sane? Who will love Aladdin Sane? Who will love Aladdin Sane? So this could, I mean, just one bit. I don't think I'm reached that. That bit where it goes into the sort of muscular part of the piano, and there's you say that really simple sort of bass line that dun 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 dun. That's kind of almost a rehearsal for a later song, which would appear on Diamond Dogs. It's very similar. It's the bones of his sort of sweet thing candidate, sort of sweet, and it's really, really cool stuff as well. It was just really interesting that they got the sort of the bones for it there.
Yeah.
So Aladdin Sane gave Bowie his first #1 selling album in the UK, and also 2 top 5 singles. This success kind of reached backwards to his previously unsuccessful releases. And by the end of 1973, Bowie was the best-selling act of the year in the UK, with 6 albums simultaneously in the UK charts. So they all came back in.
Lit this retroactive fire for all the stuff that he would release before this. Yeah, that's
exactly
devotion, and obviously, like, he sparked curiosity across the nation. If that's how it unfolded.
Yeah, I mean, it's a synergy. So he gained almost like a cult following Ziggy Stardust, and he toured extensively, and people were obsessed. And then he appeared on Top of the Pops, famously doing Starman, and he had that androgynous feel to it, which is one of the first times it was seen. It's right at the birth of sort of glam as well. Just all those key sort of moments fold together, and then you bring out this as well, and bang, all kicks off.
Yeah.
So in 2003, Aladdin Sane was ranked among 6 Bowie entries on Rolling Stone's list of 500 greatest albums of all time. It was ranked 77 on Pitchfork list of 100 albums of the top albums of the 70s. In 2013, Enemy ranked the album 230th in the list of 500 greatest albums of all time, and the album was also included in the book 1001 albums you must hear before you die. And it just so happens.
Let me guess. Oh, cool.
So, here we go. there is Aladdin Sane. Terrible. There we go. You got it. And interesting enough, King Crimson Lark's tongue and aspect next to it. Thing. Bob Marley and the Wailers, Catch a Fire on the next page. I mean, 73 was a hell of a year.
Yeah.
You've got Hawkwind, John Cale, Can, Lou Reed, Berlin. Just going the other way. Lynyrd Skynyrd, incredible bongo band, which I love that album. It's so cool. Rolling Stones and 72. I don't really like that album anyway. But yeah, what a time to be alive.
Yeah.
Amazing stuff. I mean, I was only 3, but there you go. So yeah, that's a little snippet into Bowie. And as I say, it's a start of him doing things a slightly more off kilter in a musical way than just his approach and his image and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So I thought it'd be really interesting and something a bit off center for you to sort of get your head around. And you're right, that piano. I mean, I first heard it when I was like probably 13 or something. I was like, "What the hell is this? Is that a tune?" You know, you don't understand what avant-garde is. But I absolutely adore it now. You know, it hasn't taken me 4 years, to do it. But yeah, I just think it's great. So I think what I'll do is I will bounce around, but I will dig up some more not hidden tracks, but sort of not so familiar tracks.
Lesser known, yeah.
And give you some more Bowie, and we can have a little snippet of what's going on in his life at the time, because it's a long career and really interesting. And I will skip a certain part of it because he put out some shite as well. But there was 70s, man. He was the king. Really was. Creatively, speaking. I mean, just incredible. But yeah, I'm really, really pleased to get a Bowie track on the channel.
Oh, so, yeah, well, and like you said, this is just the opening of the floodgates, because like you had also mentioned, I know the bass, I know probably a dozen or so Bowie songs, but from all that he's released, there's a shit ton that I've yet to even hear or know about. So I'm looking forward to having you kind of, like, as I've said a million times before, kind of fill in gaps for me. This channel does two things. Like, I get to expose you to some newer music and stuff from mostly over here, but you get to educate me on all the stuff that came before me and slipped through the cracks. So it's a lovely symbiotic relationship, and our venture into Bowie will be a perfect illustration of that, I think.
Yeah, great stuff. I'm excited.
Yeah,
the laughing gnome heading your way soon. I'll wrap things up. Thanks for listening to this, Andy. Folks out there, tell us what you think. There must be some Bowie fans, please. Tell us what you think of this track. Hit the like button if you like it, and go and paint your face as well. Drop some comments. We'd love to hear from you what you think about this song, this album. It was always seen as a poor relation to Ziggy Stardust. I mean, also, he was trying to shake the image of Ziggy. So this is half-step Ziggy, but deliberately so. So that's why he was doing it. But yeah, and then he knocked out Pin-Ups and then went into Diamond Dogs, which is an awesome album. Anyway, but tell us what you think. I will keep talking about Bowie forever if you let me. We really love to hear from you. I'm really interested to hear what you think about this track, this song, Bowie in general. And I will flip around, so God knows which one will be next. It might be something from later in the 70s or early 80s or 2000s or 60s. You never know. If you haven't subscribed already, please do, and more Bowie goodness will come your way. That being said, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see all of you on the next episode of the Audiophiles.
We'll see you later, guys.